everybody's attention, and then Planning Commission February 8th meeting to order. I appreciate everybody coming down, and before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. If you can work with us, and if everybody silences their phones, it's very helpful for the speakers and all the citizens that get up and speak, so there's no disturbances. And then on a personal note, probably out of order, but I don't know if you all know this or not, but there's a big game on Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday, February 11th, 5:30. Getting a lot of press. It should be interesting. I know my dad and I have a small wager, or that may not be legal, but we have, my dad and I always talk about the game, so I know that'll be exciting. Also, we do have a lot of new commissioners, and before I introduce our newest commissioner, I do want to tell the commissioners that if you want a printed staff report, I know it's online and a lot of folks read it online or on their tablet, but if you want a printed staff report, please let either the director or Lisa know, and we can get you that before each meeting. And so I just want you to know that that's an option. We used to do all of them printed material, but then we're trying to be earth friendly, Stuart, and Stuart gets his printed. But anyway, so that leaves us to, we do have a new commissioner, and it's actually the mayor's appointment. And I want to introduce Leah Dunnan. Leah, raise your hand, and thank you for coming. And just a little bit about the new commissioner. She is a research assistant professor at Vanderbilt and teaches courses on international climate treaty negotiation. She's an environmental attorney and serves as of counsel to the law firm of Beveridge and Diamond. She has her BA from American University in Washington, D.C., where I actually went to debate camp one time. Very interesting place, lovely place. And she has her JD and PhD from Vanderbilt. And so she's almost an original Nashvilleian, but has been here since she's been 6 years old. She has 2 daughters, 1 husband, and 2 dogs and 1 cat. Very busy family. So welcome, and thank you for your volunteer service. As many of you know, that we are all volunteers other than the staff. And so welcome, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you for giving your time to the city. So that leads us to the agenda, commissioners. And the first is the adoption of the agenda, which was sent out. And is there a motion to approve? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. We are on to item C, which is the approval of the January 11th, 2024 minutes, and those were also sent out prior and posted, and we'll need a motion. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Motion, second. Any discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and January 11th, 2024 minutes are adopted. And so we are on to the recognition of the council members. And so now council members, you'll have to bear with me. There's a lot of new council members. So I'm trying to get everybody and learn everybody's name. I see several that, and so I write these down as y'all come in. And so the first is Councilman Cash. You want to go first? You'll wait on your item? Okay. Councilman Spain, you want to go next? Come on up. Welcome.
How about now? There we go.
You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Always a pleasure to be with you. I'm here on item number 11, which is rezone on McCory Lane. This was previously on your agenda at your last meeting, and it was deferred to give us an opportunity to have a community meeting to discuss the plans in more detail. And I appreciate you taking that action to give us that opportunity. We were able to have that meeting last week. It was very well attended. And the development team was able to share more of the details about their proposed project with the community, answer a lot of questions, and address some concerns. I think the The feeling leaving that meeting was generally positive, but I think there may be some members of the community who are here to share their thoughts with you about that project as well. And I look forward to hearing those. I'm going to stick around and see what they have to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Next, let's see here. Councilman Huffman, come on up. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for all that you do. I'm speaking on item number 17 this evening. So this is an amendment for a residential planned unit development at 8230 Eva Drive. I'm in full support of this project. I want to note that the amount of housing is already zoned appropriately. This is just a cancellation of that planned unit development. Currently, it would require the entrance of this development to go onto Eva Drive, which could potentially cause a lot of issues for that side street. This changes it to Tyler Drive, which is a more accessible road. It's kind of across the street from DuPont Tyler Middle School and Tulip Grove Elementary. There will be people that are going to speak out about this tonight, some of my constituents. I've spoken to a lot of them. Some of the concerns have to do with the amount of traffic on Tyler Drive. You get no argument from me that Tyler Drive is very busy, and having two schools there, being near an intersection at Andrew Jackson Parkway, it's definitely a problem. One thing I will highlight is Tyler Drive was accepted into the traffic calming program. We're starting that up next month, and I'm going to be continuing exploring ways that we can handle the ongoing traffic situation there. So thank you for your time, and appreciate your support ahead of time.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate you coming down. All right. Council Lady Evans, come on up. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, especially to a fellow debate nerd and Chairman Adkins. So I'm here to speak about item number 2, which is an SP amendment. So this is an SP amendment. The process started during my last term, and it's continued to kind of move out as the applicant and planning have had ongoing conversations related to a small area study and a required road network around this SP that's created, I think, some tension, because I think ordinarily if the road network were not in play, this is a project that would easily pass the planning commission conversation, because they're converting from senior living community to multifamily. So the road network is the biggest challenge, because we are looking at essentially leveraging this property to kind of start an east-west and north-south road network that will extend from South New Hope at Central Pike all the way to the county line. So it's a challenge. I will say, without the road network in place, converting a project like this to multifamily would not be something that I would be against, because we already have, similar structures, similar uses. And so this is a tough decision for all of you. It is recommended for disapproval, but I did at least want to come and acknowledge that it's a challenging conversation, and I think reflects the tension between creating networks like this as a result of these studies and kind of the need for housing. And so that's the conversation that I think you'll be having with the applicant. And thank you again.
Thank you, Council Lady. Appreciate that. Any other council members? Lisa, have I missed anybody? I don't see any other ones. If some come in, we'll let them speak. All right. So now we are on to items for deferral or withdrawal.
Okay, items for deferral or withdrawal. Starting on page 3 of your agenda, item number 1, 2023 CP 003005, Bordeaux, Whites Creek, Haynes Trinity Community Plan Amendment. Staff recommendation is defer to the February 22nd Planning Commission meeting. On page 4 of your agenda, item number 3, 2020 SP 039003, 6001 and 6003 O'Brien Avenue. Staff recommendation is to withdraw. Item number 6, 2023 SP 086001, The Collective. Staff recommendation is deferred to February 22nd. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 9, 2023 S 197001, Vaughn Subdivision. Staff recommendation is deferred to February 22nd. Item number 12, 2024 Z 009 PR 001, staff recommendation is deferred to February 22nd. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 13, 2015 SP 013005, Stevens Valley SP Amendment. Staff recommendation is deferred to February 22nd. Item number 15, 2024 S 016001, staff recommendation is deferred to the February 22nd Planning Commission meeting. And that concludes our deferral withdrawal agenda.
Thank you. And so, Commissioners, you've heard the items for deferral withdrawal. Make sure I get these correct, but they're items number 1, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, and 15. Is that correct? All right, Commissioners, you've heard the items for deferral withdrawal. Is there a motion? Motion, second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are deferred or withdrawn. Next is item F, which is the consent agenda. And go ahead and do the consent agenda.
For the consent agenda, I will read through the items on the tentative consent agenda and ask if anyone is here in opposition. If so, please raise your hand, and if there's someone in opposition to the items, those items will be presented. If no one is in opposition to the item, it will remain on the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. Starting on page 4 of the agenda, item number 4, 2023 SP 032001, 316 Homestead Preliminary SP. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the agenda. Item number 5, 2023 SP 041001, 330 and 332 Homestead Road. Is anyone in opposition to these items? This item will be on the agenda to be heard. Item number 7, 2023 NL 002001, 1085 Zophie Street. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 8, 2023 S123001, Frankie Lee Moore. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 10, 2023 Z 096 PR 001. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 11, 2024 Z 005 PR 001. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 14, 2024 SP 005001, 2907 12th Avenue South. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 16, 2024 S017001, Pierman Heights. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 17, 95P 004001, Allen Estates PUD Amendment. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the agenda to be heard. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, 2024 Z007 PR 001. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 19, 2024 Z017 PR 001. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the agenda to be heard. Okay, continuing on with the consent agenda. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. Now I will run through all of the items that we identified on the consent agenda with the full caption. As a reminder to our audience, for items on the consent agenda, there will not be a public hearing. On page 4 of the agenda, item number 7, 2023 NL 002-001 1085 Zophie Street. This is a request to apply a neighborhood landmark overlay district at 1085 Zophie. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 8, 2023 S123001 Frankie Lee Moore. This is a request for a final plat to create 2 lots along Rawlings Road. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions, including variances to section 4 of the subdivision regulations. Item number 10, 2023 Z096PR001. This is a request to rezone from CS to MUNANS for property at 117 Bridgeway Avenue. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 11, 2024 Z005PR001. This is a request to rezone from AR2A to RS10 zoning for property at 7946 and 7968 McCrory Lane. Staff recommendation is to approve. Continuing on page 6 of the agenda, item number 14, 2024 SP005-001, 2907 12th Avenue South. This is a request to rezone from CS to SP for property at 2907 12th Avenue South to permit a mixed-use development. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 16, 2024 S017001 Pierman Heights. This is a request for a final plat to remove the reserve status and consolidate into 1 lot for properties along Pierman Drive. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, 2024 Z007PR001. This is a request to rezone from R6A to RM20ANS for properties along Robertson Street. Staff recommendation is to approve. And under item H, other business, item 20, correction memo for case 2023 CP005002. Item 21, new employment contract for Harriet McSurdy, Swathi Suvarna, and Jonathan Russell. And item number 25, to accept the director's report and approve administrative items.
Thank you. And so, commissioners, you've heard the items to approve on the consent agenda, but let's make sure we go through these to get them correct. So the items that will pass altogether on the consent agenda with no public hearing are the following. Items number 7, 8, 10, 11, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21, and 25. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, commissioners, you've heard the items to adopt on the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Vice Chair.
I guess I remember item 11 was one that we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting, and I guess there was a community meeting that occurred this week. I just wondered if there's any other update from staff on that one before.
No, there has been a community meeting. My understanding is there are a few folks here, but that they've had their questions answered. We confirmed to make sure, since no one raised their hand in opposition. But there was a community meeting. If it was to move forward with any sort of subdivision development, there would be another public hearing, and that would be sort of a different, separate process.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I know that Councilman Spain has been working on this item, so thank you for working on that, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Good question. All right, commissioners, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are adopted. So now we are on to item G, which is the items to be considered under public hearing. It looks like there are 5 items. Items 2, 4, 5, 17, and 19, and all the other items have been taken care of. So I know that we are a friendly group up here, and I just want the audience to know that here's how the process works. Some of you have been in this room before and testified and are expert at doing that. Some of you are not. And so it goes like this. We do this, the staff will do a presentation, then we'll open the public hearing. And that means we'll take up the applicant. They have 10 minutes and they can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal. And then everyone wishing to speak in support will come up and you have 2 minutes and the timer is right there. And actually, Lisa, if you could, I can't see the timer. If you could just move it over just a little bit so I can see it. A little bit more. There we go. That's perfect. All right. And so you'll have 2 minutes and then we'll do everyone wishing to speak in support and then we'll do everyone wishing to speak in opposition. And please state your name and address for the record. And then we'll do the applicant will have a rebuttal and then the council member speaks and then we'll close the public hearing and that's when the commissioner speaks. So that's how the process works. We always ask, please try to be as respectful and professional as you can. Clapping, yelling, all that stuff is really not appropriate. What changes our mind are arguments and articulation. And so we appreciate everybody trying to do that. All right, so we are on to item number 2. Oh yes, and when the speakers come up, make sure you form a line so we can do it quickly. All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laszlo Martone, and I'll be presenting item number 2, a proposed amendment at 4214 Central Pike. The request is to amend a specific plan to permit 320 multifamily residential units. Staff's recommendation is disapprove. The property is located at the corner of South New Hope Road and Central Pike on approximately 14 acres. Properties to the south and east of the subject property are zoned RS15, while properties to the north and west are zoned SP, MUN, and MULA. Surrounding land uses include vacant commercial land, single-family residential, multifamily residential, office, and institutional. South New Hope Road is identified as a collector avenue, and Central Pike is identified as an arterial boulevard on the major collector street plan. The existing SP on the site was a regulatory plan approved in 2014 to permit a mix of uses. I have those uses listed on the slide, as you can see in the proposed use table. These include nursing home, assisted care living, independent living, multifamily as its primary uses, and it also allows for various accessory uses such as community education, general office, daycare center, as well as single family and 2-family residential as accessory. The site is located within the T3 suburban mixed-use corridor policy area, which is intended to enhance suburban mixed-use corridors by encouraging a greater mix of higher density residential and mixed-use development along the corridor. These areas provide high access management and are served by highly connected street networks, sidewalks, and existing or planned mass transit. Additionally, the plan is located within a Central Pike supplemental policy area. Adopted in 2018, the supplemental policy was created to reflect the desires of the community for alternative route connections, pedestrian infrastructure, and different land uses. The supplemental policy contains a concept map, which I've shown on the screen, which displays ideal locations for higher intensity uses and includes a conceptual public street network. Subject property is outlined in a yellow dashed line and is shown within the commercial mixed use area on the concept map, which is shaded in red. The connected street network is a key feature of the supplemental policy, which is intended to meet several goals, including providing multiple routes and connections, lower traffic volumes, reduced traffic delays on major streets, efficient service delivery, and better and redundant emergency vehicle access. Additionally, an interconnected street network allows for lower stress bicycle and pedestrian movements between neighborhoods. Now that we understand the policies applied to the site, we can discuss the details of the plan. The proposed plan includes a total of 320 multifamily residential units shared across 7 buildings throughout the site. The buildings are shown as 3-4 split-story residential buildings with moderate spacing. The site is accessed by 2 points, one along South New Hope Road and another off Central Pike. Parking frames the internal private drive network and encircles the site. There's also sidewalk and planting strips shown on the plan along portions of South New Hope Road and Central Pike. Internal sidewalks provide connection between buildings and site amenities. And as you can see on the plan, there's also a few amenity areas, 2 park spaces, and the stormwater management area at the northwest corner of the site. On the screen, I've highlighted 4 key characteristics of the suburban mixed-use corridor policy. When reviewing the plan against the policy, staff found that the plan includes some characteristics of the policy by providing housing along a corridor and framing the Central Pike corridor with the northernmost building. However, buildings internal to the site orient to surface parking, and the plan does not set up shared access or connectivity to the larger parcels to the east. In addition to not meeting certain goals of the mixed-use corridor policy, the plan is also inconsistent with the Central Pike supplemental policy area. The Central Pike concept plan on the left side of the screen shows the planned east to west road connection intersecting through the site, starting at South New Hope Road and eventually intersecting with a north-south extension of North New Hope Road. I've highlighted this planned street connection with a red dashed line. The proposed SP amendment does not include a public street connection to set up future connectivity to adjacent sites. The site is in a key location to begin to set up the envisioned street network, and not doing so would prevent the community's shared vision from coming to fruition, not only for the site, but for the larger area. The supplemental policy also provides guidance on the mix of land uses within the area. The subject site falls within the commercial mixed-use land use guidance, which I mentioned earlier, and calls for a mixture of high-intensity commercial and high-intensity residential uses. The proposed plan is an all-residential project, and although the SP envisions a mixed-use development for the site, staff would consider an all-residential project, but would expect a well-designed plan that met the goals of both the base policy and the supplemental policy by providing the needed infrastructure and street connections. As the proposal does not include any provisions for a public street network, staff has determined that the plan does not meet the goals of the policy. Additionally, not all agencies have recommended approval of the proposed plan. Due to the plan's inconsistencies with both the T3CM policy and the Central Pike supplemental policy, staff recommends disapproval.
Thank you very much. And so we'll go ahead and open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? Come on up. You have 10 minutes, and you can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're not. Your mic's not on. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the Commission, Sean Henry, 500 11th Avenue North. I'm with the law firm of Tune Intrican and White, representing the developer. Forgive my voice. If we could go back, Mr. Laszlo, to the first picture that has Timberview Lane identified on that map, I'd appreciate that. It's Timberview Lane is really the only point at issue here, and the principal reason that my client has asked for you to consider Timberview Lane as serving, you can see it on the drawing here. Timberview Lane is an existing public street. In 1998, this planning commission required the extension of Timberview Lane when the property that it serves, which is that parcel 003, when that comes forward with further subdivision and development, that Timberview Lane is required by this commission, and that's of record to be extended. And so another factor there is that the distance between Timberview Lane, that's there now, and Central Pike is less than 1,000 feet. Your subdivision regulations and section 3-6, identifies the minimum length of a block at being 1,000 feet. So that block now between Central Pike and Timberview Lane is right at the minimum block distance. By inserting a new street in here, as the policy identifies, a new street, cutting that distance in half, that violates your block standards in your subdivision regulations. So we think that's important because that's a collector street. The mobility plan in 2018 said that as a conceptual network, alignments may vary as a result of topography, a few other environmental considerations, and detailed analysis. Our engineer has done a detailed analysis. Topography is absolutely a hindrance to that road going in where the general conceptual mobility plan shows it. And that's an important consideration. Another point is that former Councilman Steve Glover filed a letter with you all by email here earlier. I'd like to submit this for the record. Mr. Laszlo, someone's going to read this, so you don't have to, but we have a letter, a series of letters here, copies to file for you all.
If you'll give that to Mr. Laszlo. Thank you.
You'll hear that in just a moment, but he's supportive of this because he not only rezoned this property with the SP that's there now in 2014, but he was part of the facilitating of meetings with the community when the 2018 mobility policy was adopted. And you'll hear what his explanation is in that letter. In 1998, as I mentioned, the Hager one-lot plat to the south mandates the extension of Timberview Lane. And additionally, this SP provides an easement for sewer extension to that Hager property. That's parcel 002 and 003. So with the approval of this amendment to this SP, that property now gets access to sewer that it presently doesn't have. That enables that property to develop. That enables that roadway to be extended to the east and northeast. And that mobility network begins to be filled out. And finally, I just want to point out that under your policy there, that blue area, which is the office mixed-use policy, that's presently at the terminus of Timberview Lane. Again, Timberview Lane's a critical street. It's already there. And trying to insert a new one midway between it and Central Pike, in the words of former Councilman Glover, he believes it will not create mobility, but actually will create a third point of intersection and congestion, traffic congestion. That's his concern about that. So we appreciate Council Lady Evans coming and speaking with you on this. We've been talking with her about this. There was a community meeting about this. We don't believe there's anyone here in opposition to this. We ask for your support and approval. And my client is here who could speak in rebuttal if necessary, but otherwise clarify any points that I may have misstated, which I hope I didn't. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And would you like to? Welcome. Oh, no. All right, so we'll save 2 minutes. Oh, go ahead,
Sorry,
keep
I'm
going.
Still part of the applicant team, sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry, I thought.
My name is Mary McGowan. I'm with Kimley Horn, Tinley Avenue. I'm the civil engineer and the applicant on it. So just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit more information on the process that we've had. Councilwoman Evans alluded to it. I mean, this started over a year ago. Have been working with her closely. One of her concerns when this project came forward was what the outcome of the traffic study would be. So we conducted the traffic study and worked with NDOT closely on it. We came up with improvements with them, which is on the driveway on Central Pike will require a right turn lane and a left turn lane in. Also at Central Pike and South New Hope Road, we will be installing a new traffic signal, left turn lane on Central Pike and a right turn lane on South New Hope. In addition to these improvements, the preliminary SP includes the right-of-way dedication for 3-lane section across the frontage of Central Pike and the future widening for whenever that goes forward with a future project. That includes 14 feet of planting strip, 8 feet of sidewalk. After the traffic study was complete with NDOT, that's when we held the meeting with the neighborhood and the councilwoman. And we presented the traffic to them and the project to them. The neighborhood, they were appreciative of the proposed signal since that's a congested location for them. So after that neighborhood meeting is when we submitted the preliminary SP, and that's when we started taking these discussions regarding the supplemental policy. So the handout that you guys have really shows that topography issue that, that Sean was talking about. And the yellow is the slopes, and so that section really limits where that east-west connection could come through into South New Hope. So as you can see on that exhibit, it's significant slopes through there. There is a very small window. Timberview Lane has already accomplished this connection. It's essentially raised up there in those grades already. So our suggestion was to go ahead and utilize the existing connection that was there. Because whatever we would construct would be a very similar situation. And as Sean mentioned, you know, the preliminary SP will bring the sanitary sewer to those properties that are locked without it. So thank you for your consideration, and we'll leave the remaining time for rebuttal. Thank you.
All right. We'll give you 2 minutes for rebuttal at the end. So anyone wishing to speak in support of the project? Come on up. Welcome. State your name in 2 minutes.
I'm Andy Clark. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm with National Healthcare Corporation in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. During the August 1st, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, I spoke in favor of this proposed, community policy, community character policy to CMT3. Our support of the policy amendment in 2018 was largely contingent on the conceptual plan, the conceptual road network. We were not involved with the conversations prior to that Planning Commission meeting to voice our opinion or support one way or the other. However, because the plan was conceptual, we didn't have any specific input to offer at the time. Since that meeting, National Healthcare has and Flournoy Development Group have discussed a possible joint venture to develop the property that we own here and to create something within the policy guidelines. In that SP that was approved in 2014 that was referred to, there were 420 total units. What we're proposing now is 320 multifamily residential units. Our main disagreement with the new T3CM mobility policy is regarding how best to implement the road network system. However, the density has not increased. In fact, it's decreased. However, the road requirements have increased greatly. So unless and until the adjacent properties are developed, we would be installing a road that has no purpose. It would go to nowhere. So we would, there is little or no benefit to provide this additional road through the property. We asked for the Timberview Lane to be considered as serving the policy intent to expand the network. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Come on over. And sir, there's Laszlo, can you help make the microphone on the side? Help you out.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Bubba McIntosh. I'm with National Healthcare Corporation as well, 100 East Vine Street. I've attended some of these meetings with Andy in the past and just reiterate what he said. But I would like to share a letter that I think was handed out to you all. It says, Dear Planning Commission members, I ask that you vote in favor of this application. When I was Metro District Council member, I rezoned this property in 2014 to enable NHC to build an assisted living facility at the intersection of Central Pike and South New Hope Road. I understand that NHC is now partnered with a developer to build an apartment complex instead of the facility. Because independent living is equivalent to multifamily dwellings, I see no problem with this change. I am surprised that staff are recommending disapproval of this very slight change in land use terminology because a new road is not being inserted into the existing SP district. In 2018, I worked hard with planning staff and area neighbors to develop a conceptual plan for future road network to open up the area bound by Central Pike, South New Hope Road, I-40, and Earhart Road. Of course, there is already an existing road, Timberview Lane, coming off of South New Hope Road that must be extended eastward when those properties redevelop. It makes no sense to ignore the existing street. Inserting another road intersection in a short distance between Timberview Lane and Central Pike on the same side of the street will only cause more traffic congestion, not increase mobility. Please approve this SP zoning amendment. Thank you for your good service, Steve Glover. And thank you for allowing me to share that with you all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Welcome. Please state your name and address. We got to turn the, hold on a second. We need to make sure we get the mic going for the record. There we go.
And I work in technology, so. Chairman, Councilman Everett, thank you for my time, for this time. My name is Brian Boatingheimer, and I live at 1230 New Hope Village, which is right across from the proposed development. And I am one of many that support the decline or the rejection of said plan. The reason being is that this plan was originally zoned for elderly assistance and those of 55 and older. Now, living on this road now, I know that there are many challenges on this road. It's a 2-lane road with no sidewalks. There have been many times that I have nearly hit pedestrians walking on this road at night or at dusk, along with the traffic from going to work and going from work. And while I respect the gentleman here presenting this, he does not live there. And with the proposed amount of housing that's going to be there, multiply that by 2, you're looking at possibly 5 to 1,000 cars, along with the new builds that are going up on New Hope Road, along with Tulip Road. Central Pike will be very congested. And now, along with that, me being a new homeowner there, my fear is with the additional light and traffic noise, it's going to impact my property values in a negative way, long term. So I ask the council and the commissioners and Councilman Evers to support that we keep this rejected until the builders come back with something more sustainable and something that's practical to the landowners and the property owners that are going to be across from this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? I'll make sure we get everybody. All right, I don't see anyone else speaking in opposition. 2-minute rebuttal. State your name.
Yes, Cameron Bean with Flournoy Development, 1715 North Dixon Drive, Columbus, Georgia. Appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate the gentleman's remarks as well. I did want to clarify a couple things about our traffic impact study and the improvements that we are proposing. We, at the signal that we're proposing at South New Hope Road, there will be a protected crosswalk that should alleviate some of those concerns. The traffic study also revealed that the level of service at that intersection and along Central Pike in that area, even with our additional units, will improve. The grade level and the level of service will improve with our improvements. We are including decel lanes. We are including sidewalks along the frontage of Central Pike as well. So I hope those address some of the concerns that were shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady? You want to go ahead? Do you want to finish it off, or have you said everything you'd like to say? Okay, I just want to make sure we always take care of the council members. We appreciate it. All right, seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Vice Chair, before I start with you, I think the commissioner should hear clarification. From our director, has NDOT approved can you give us an update on the agencies that have not approved?
So, NDOT's recommendation, the traffic and parking recommendation have both listed as returned, which means they have not approved those. The issue is around the mobility network. And we work closely with them when we establish or recommend a mobility network, and they take that into account in their reviews. I think it would be good to deliberate on this, but it would be, that sounded like good disco. It would be unusual for the commission to proceed without all reviewing agencies approving. But I do think it would be good to deliberate and give some feedback, but I wouldn't recommend proceeding while an agency hasn't submitted an approval yet.
All right, Vice Chair. We'll start with Vice Chair, and then we'll see if anybody else has discussion and try to give it. Vice Chair.
I have a question, but kind of to that point, it's a little circular because NDOT can't really approve this because, I mean, in some ways, that whole area is somewhat tied up until we see some redevelopment occurring to establish the street network. Can you, so the applicant brought up the issue of the block length. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So that's sort of tied around the question of timber view. And Laszlo, could you go back to the mobility network plan there? That's good right there. So Timberview Drive is not shown on this map, which was the map where planning staff went out and analyzed the area to determine where was the appropriate road network. So Timberview right now is accesses 2 lots, I believe. And there was a plat referenced that had previously been approved. And when that plat was approved, the subdivision actually didn't meet the subdivision regulation because of access and road frontage. But it was approved for a communications tower, and so it was a very limited use. And so staff felt comfortable supporting it and approving that use given the limited use. But there was a condition to say, if that was to further develop, you would have to extend the road. So it wasn't a condition of the plat approval to create any sort of road network. It was basically saying you can only do a communications tower without having road access because it didn't meet the subdivision regulations. So when we were out looking at the mobility needs for the area as part of this community-driven process for the Central Pike study, as you can see, it wasn't shown that that would be the primary connector because we were looking for something that was, and while this is conceptual, we were looking for something that was more centrally located, sort of within that wider area. Because of the nature of Timberview, we would need to work with NDOT. NDOT has been supportive of the location of the road, and so with separation like that, there's guidance, of course, for block lengths. But if Timberview is a relatively low volume, and right now it really serves as a drive for a couple of homes, it's not a through street, then you can usually sometimes manage to have a shorter separation.
And if I may, I mean, Commissioner, to your point about this being a circular conversation, in a way, I mean, if you look at the plan, the red area suggests higher intensity. So you do the policy, you align the streets with the land use that you're recommending. So it doesn't have to be circular. It may just be that we need to revisit the policy if we want to re-entertain the mobility network. So we've got planning and NDOT aligned on what we think is best based on our understanding of what the policy says. But that may be the process so that it's not circular, right? We recommended one set of land uses to meet these goals. If we want to revisit that, and I think that's for you to deliberate and discuss, perhaps we need to revisit the red area.
And just one more point too, I mean, there's always sort of this question of who goes first and how do we get the mobility, and we are in a bit of a unique situation here in that we have had pre-application requests from some adjacent properties, and so we're seeing like a really great opportunity to really start to build out what was the community sort of goals for the area, and so that things don't normally align that well, especially when you're talking about neighborhood building, which is what this is when you're really trying to create the backbone of the community, which is that mobility network. So we've got a really good opportunity because we've got others sort of along this same stretch that are starting conversations as well.
So that makes a ton of sense. I know this area is very congested, or, I don't know this specific area, but I know the broader Hermitage area is very congested. So, the flip side to approving the plan as proposed, if we were to go against staff's recommendation, is that we would preclude that kind of mobility altogether. And that would not be a good thing to do. So, I think that this does make a lot of sense. It does make my head sort of turn about, it would be really nice for us to look at all of these projects together. I mean, I know that's the point of a community planning process, but it's easier for the applicant to have the vision too of how it's all going to build out if we start to see this as a whole comprehensive development plan. So I'm going to listen to everyone else. I do understand. So I guess just to further clarify, they will not have it. I mean, if they did shift the plan around so that they could accommodate this road and they have less than 1,000 feet for block length, that would not create an issue from the new proposed road up to Central Pike.
We would have to work with NDOT, but no, I don't believe it would. I mean, typically, if there's sort of a lower volume road, then you can generally have some shorter distances. The block length standards are a subdivision standard, and so there's a different standard for sort of street, and we're not talking about like an overall subdivision, so those block length standards are in the subdivision regulations, and so the separation requirement for sort of intersections or streets or drives are a little bit different, so we would just need to work with NDOT, but they have been supportive of the road in this general location.
Okay. Well, my inclination, just knowing how these areas are developing, is to stay true to our intent and connectivity. And so I'm leaning towards supporting staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other discussion? Commissioner Smith.
Just a few questions. How much of the SPA new road grid has been constructed since 2018?
This is the first piece to come in, and so, I'm sorry.
There is.
Oh, go ahead, you don't.
There's a couple other SPs in this area. As you can see, there's a one just north of Central Pike and the property that's owned MULA. It's got the SPMU. That one actually does include an east to west connection, which is shown on the supplemental policy. So it is north of Central Pike, but for the areas in the supplemental policy south of Central Pike, this would be the first one. And it is in a key location, and that it's at this intersection, would be beginning to work at building that connected road network. I just sort of like the first piece of the puzzle.
Do the pre-apps you're seeing also include the roads?
From what we have given them the feedback that they should be including the roads. Right now, I think that those also have a desire for private drives. And so we have been giving them similar feedback that it should be setting up and extending a public street network, which can serve so many different things like Laszlo talked about. Makes it easier for bicycles, people to get around, that sort of thing too. So we have been encouraging that, but they have been wanting to do private drives as well.
This is a dumb question. Is the applicant, were they to include that piece? They're responsible for building the public road and then just deeding it over to NDOT. NDOT's not actually doing the construction there.
Correct. Typically, when we have, when we're reviewing SPs that have a mobility component like this is not unlike an area that's north of West Trinity that we have been working through, where we have a collector street that was planned and shown as part of a small area plan, and there have been segments of it approved in 3 different SPs. And so we just have to, as one comes in, get the construction plans, NDOT's reviewing it, the engineers are working to make sure that it can be easily tied together to sort of the next piece. And then when that engineer comes in, they're working to tie it together. And so it's not, so yes, they would build their segment and would work with engineering to make sure that it would be easily connected sort of by the next piece.
And I think my last one is the street size you're looking at in the SPA, different, similar than Timberview?
It would be a standard, it's not a collector per the Major and Collector Street Plan. So it would be a standard local 50 feet with sidewalks on both sides. And so Timberview may have a similar right-of-way, but the cross-section is different.
Okay.
And it's a much more narrow.
Right, that's okay. That was my question on Timberview. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Council Lady?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question about the topography. It was mentioned that the topography is of high elevation or difficult for the building. Just wondered from staff's opinion, is the topography grade is it average for for this area? Is this topography any more challenging than any of the other topographies in this area that you all noticed?
So there is some topography right along the South New Hope Road. Where they have their driveway shown going through it, the entrance drive. There may have to be a slight shift from where they have their entrance drive shown to the north, but NDOT has reviewed it and they believe that it is that there is ability to construct a road, that topography should not be an issue there based on preliminary engineering analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Henley.
And so I know a lot of the time in the presentation, as well as some of the comments, have been about the road and the connectivity. But I'm curious, the previous SP had accessory uses, and I know just from doing a lot of work, community engagement, some of the accessory uses, community education, general office, daycare center. I could see some of those being aligned with the previous use of assisted living, but I know a lot of times those are pretty significant factors when communities support SPs. And now with those being excluded, just for my information, was there any dialogue about potentially having any of those accessory uses brought back in or complementing the residential development, residential only development?
So the previous SP that was on the property was a regulatory SP in that it allowed sort of a litany of uses, primarily assisted living, nursing, and independent living with maximum units for each of those types. And then there were accessory units that were permitted, or accessory uses, that were permitted, and none of those accessory uses were permitted to be a principal use, so they could only exist if something else did. I think we sort of had some conversations. So a lot of the corridor policies, mixed use corridor, are primarily intended to be residential with sort of punctuations of mixed use. And so it's not unusual to see an all residential project, although sort of at an intersection, you might expect a mix of uses. I think we sort of mentioned that, but we didn't say you have to include a mixture of uses. But we sort of did a light touch of looking at that.
Thanks for that. That was my question, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? We'll need a motion. Vice Chair.
I will make a motion to approve staff's recommendation to disapprove.
That's a proper motion. The motion is to disapprove, and Commissioner,
Commissioner Henry, thank you. No, I'm kidding.
no, well, this
My
is.
client would like to defer before there's a negative vote on this application. If we could have 2 meetings in which to discuss this with NDOT,
Thank you.
we would like to return. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair, would you like to withdraw your?
I will withdraw my motion, and I will make a motion to defer this item for
2 meetings.
2 meetings.
That's proper motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Deferred 2 meetings. And that includes to keep the public hearing open, right? Okay. Well, just for clarification. Okay. Thank you. All right. So now we are on to item number 4. But, Councilor Toombs, I saw you. So before we get started, would you like to speak first, or do you just want to speak at the end? Is it? You want to speak first? Come on up, Council Lady. And Commissioners, as a tradition, we let when the council members are here, it gives us a lot of clarity on the cases, and so we always try to make sure the council members can speak and before we even consider items. So, Councilor Toombs, welcome.
Thank you. Is it okay to speak on 4 and 5 since it's the same people?
Yeah, that's our tradition. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
fantastic.
ma'am. Yeah.
So I did send some good evening, Commissioners. I did send some comments about 316 and 330 and 332 Homestead. Homestead Road is kind of a unique road. It is a side road off of Dickerson Pike. Every parcel on this side road is zoned commercial, though there are probably 5, 6, maybe 7 residences on this street. It is a tiny road, barely 2 lanes. The proposed development, both are townhome developments. I have worked over many months, I think it's been over a year, or nearly a year, with the developer to try to come up with something that would work for that road and would also make it possible to make some improvements to the road. Because all of the properties are CS, there's a lot that folks can do within their rights as owners of CS zoning, including putting hotels on that side street. It is my preference to see housing there. Even though one of the SPs, I believe it's 316 Homestead, would have the opportunity for non-owner occupied short-term rentals, there may still be some folks who purchase who choose not to use that option, and 330 and 332 would prohibit short-term rentals. And again, the developers have agreed to do some improvements to Homestead Road to make it better for the folks that live there, to make it better for future folks who will live there, including some sidewalk connection and some widening of the street at certain points. There have been community meetings. There was a community meeting back in April of last year for 316. There was in March of last year for 316, and there was a community meeting in April for 330 and 332. I know there is at least one property owner that is opposed who owns a business there. You may have received an email, I know I did, from about 20 or 30 of his employees. But again, if property owners develop by right, there's no way to put those extra infrastructure requirements or work those out with the developer. And with these 2 SP developments, there is that opportunity to do that additional infrastructure that will improve the road and make it better for the people who live there and who will live there in the future, as well as give them connectivity to Dickerson Pike, which, as we know, is a major corridor. There's a lot of amenities on Dickerson Pike. There'll be some more coming down the pipeline, and there's also transit on Dickerson Pike, which gives people options other than using their car to get around. So I would ask that you approve both. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Appreciate that. And so we're ready for the presentation on item number 4.
Okay, I'm Dustin Shane, staff planner. This is an SP at 316 Homestead. This is to permit a multifamily development. Our recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Zoning on the site is CS, Commercial Services. The zoning to the west, north, and east is also CS, and then to the south, there's some RS10. The base policy is T4 Urban Community Center, but then there's a small area plan, the Dickerson North Corridor Study, that applies to this property. The site plan you see, there's townhomes attached multifamily that's fronting on a right-of-way, fronting on open space, and then private drives throughout, providing access and a sidewalk network that connects up to the public sidewalk that they're starting. And then also some buffers to the south for that residential area. This is 23 units at about 14 units an acre. Height set at 3 stories and 45 feet. As I said, some generous buffers and setbacks to the south to buffer that single family area. Sidewalks being provided, parking minimums being met. Looking at the policy, the base policy, T4 Urban Community Center, which is to maintain these urban centers that serve surrounding neighborhoods and provide pedestrian-friendly amenities and infrastructure. The small area plan, Dickerson North, this is the Ewing-Broadmoor area. Townhomes are cited as a good transition here. This is the lowest intensity area, that yellow area you see on the edges, that's supposed to transition from that corridor down to the single family area. Some of the limits to the site, there was originally infrastructure envisioned with Larkspur Drive connecting up to Homestead. That was removed at the December 14th Planning Commission meeting through a community plan amendment. So now kind of the recommendations of the plan are a little bit limited based on that infrastructure that has been removed from planning. So the applicant provided some numbers at when a traffic study would be warranted here at Homestead and Dickerson. So NDOT has reviewed that and looked at it and found that the 56 units proposed with this and the next rezoning that's just a few doors down leaves a lot of development potential here on Homestead, but as we move into the future, approvals will be limited here based on that. Also, there's a memo at your desk I want to draw your attention to. There was some confusion here about whether STR would be permitted, short-term rentals. Looking back, we had conversations and figured that out, that it would be permitted here based on the surrounding zonings and conversations with the council member. And also, the applicant has agreed to build sidewalks on the south side of Homestead between this and the other proposed rezoning to help with those infrastructure challenges. So our recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And commissioners, we'll open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? Welcome. Come on up, and you have 10 minutes. You can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal. Please state your name and address. But yeah, let's get the mic on. Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council, Commissioners. I appreciate your time in this matter. This is a long storied property, at least in my world. It's been over a year since we've been working with Ms. Toombs, as she had mentioned, from original submittal to the community members. So just a brief history, as Mr. Shane so eloquently said, there's been a few changes on this site from its original concept. We originally submitted this as a regulatory SP on both properties, and we can talk about that one next, and the next one. But both of them were originally envisioned as just being regulatory SP, given the corridor was CS, and we were trying to add the residential component to that. Now, once we got into it, we found the Larkspur connection was a contingent point with planning based on the small area plan that we discussed, or that was discussed. And just given that, it took a long deferral, and we eventually made it to where we needed a specific plan, which you see today, to show something along the lines of a residential development. I will note that also in the confusion with some of the back and forth from the previous time we were here before this body, not a lot of y'all were here and saw this originally, but we have been here before. We have had an open hearing on this one a few months in May last year. So The concerns there were, of course, the road widening and the condition of Homestead Road. We are providing our major street collector plans along our frontages for both projects. But given the corridor, we were asked to defer again to see if we could do a community plan amendment to remove that connection, given the neighbors to the south did not want to see that connection through this commercial corridor. So here we are today. We were able to get the community plan amended and are hopeful that y'all will see fit to approve this today. The one thing that may have been missed in communication is the original request was MULA. And so I asked that if it is something that the commission would be open to, is to reallow that as was previously discussed in the original meeting. And I talked to Mr. Shane about this previously too. So that is a part of our request, as well as you can already see the memo that had originally went through with STR allowed. But given the site context, again, the idea here is that somebody has to be the first to bring infrastructure, to bring attractiveness to an area like this. Like Ms. Toombs said, there is some single family on the south side of Homestead, though this area is prime for some middle housing, just given its context to Dickerson Pike and abroad. So we're hopeful that this starts a trend in this area, and given the constraints of the traffic study and the signal analysis that we did, that people will be attracted to this small cul-de-sac to provide some more middle housing as long as it does not exceed that traffic study. So again, we have large setbacks on our rear to protect our single-family neighbors to our south, and that's by design, giving them substantial buffers to protect them from any noise, light, etc. And that's true for both. We provide cross-parcel access now, and it's prime for that, just given the grades and the context of our site plan. We have multiple connection points that anybody that develops adjacent to us can utilize to create some of those network streets that we were just discussing on the last SP that would help with congestion and walkability of this area. Did mention the sidewalks from 316 to 330. The developer is willing to look forward to doing that to help with the street section. Part of the NDOT's conditions, and you may read those, is that some widening of the street would be required. The homestead as it exists today is a 50-foot right-of-way. However, the road is very substandard. It's 20 feet at best, and where it's not 20 feet, we have chosen to work with NDOT to widen that to a minimum of 20 feet for its entire length. Also, we've discussed with them as updating the cul-de-sac at the end of the street to allow for better emergency services and turning movements. That would eliminate the small little island you can see on the top of the screen. It's just a weird, I call them a fisheye, but it's just a weird landscape island in the middle of this cul-de-sac. So that would help with turning movements for emergency services vehicles. And again, we're trying to help the condition of Homestead, not hurt it, and living within the right-of-way that we're given. Given that, I'm going to reserve the 2 minutes for rebuttal, and I'll love to speak with you again.
Thank you. We'll reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone wishing to speak in support of the project? No one wishing to speak in support? Seeing no one? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? If you all will please line up and state your name and address. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me. Good evening. Quan Poole, 511 Union Street. I'm an attorney with the law firm Holland & Knight. It's very good to see some familiar faces up here. I'm representing Steve Kirby. He is the owner of about between 4 and 5 parcels on this lot. He runs a business, Empower Electric, on this street. He's been there for over a decade. And primarily what drew him to this location is the fact that it was zoned commercial CS at the time. Most of all the parcels on that street are, and the close proximity to Briley Parkway. So the main issue here is just infrastructure. It's not against the development. It's a very narrow street, only 19 foot wide. He's got a number of vehicles, tractor trailers, large vans, and pickup trucks that traverse this street on a consistent basis. And so now when you're introducing 56 additional units, I believe 443 trips additional trips according to the traffic study that they provided. That's a lot of traffic on a very narrow street. And so the issue that it presents is that now the state of the street, which is relatively calm, there's not a lot of conflict with vehicles and those large tractor trailers. But when you introduce an additional almost 450 trips, there's going to be a lot more issues. And he's, going to be operating this business. You introduce residential uses onto this commercial corridor, and there's going to be complaints. There's going to be complaints about his business, about his trucks. And the other thing is that because of the number of units, undoubtedly they're going to have to increase the water and the sewer. And so they're going to have to open up Homestead Road. And so if Homestead Road is going to be opened up to make those improvements, we'd prefer that the capacity of those water and sewer lines are upgraded to envision what's coming. Because when the road is closed, it's already going to disrupt his business once, and he'd prefer not to have that happen 3 or 4 times each time another developer comes in and wants to develop their property. Got a lot more to say, but
Thank you.
It's tough.
Time flies when you're having fun at the Planning Commission. All right. Come on up. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Katie Kirby. I am also here to represent Empower Electric and our views on this project. As Quan said, Empower came to this property over a decade ago in 2012, and what made it so attractive was that it was a sleepy neighborhood and there were just a few commercial properties that were present. This street has been home to only a handful of individuals and businesses the entirety of that time, because that is truly all that it can support. Even with the low levels of traffic currently, the street has problems. Like was previously mentioned, it's at best 20 feet wide, and traffic of any kind becomes a hazard. The elevated road surfaces mean that there's no ditch to enter to provide passersby, and the deliveries necessary for the current commercial zoning will only be further impeded by having over 100 additional units added. As we said, if this is going to move forward, we just want to know the concrete plans to help improve the neighborhood and the current infrastructure so that we can continue to run our business the way that we have been. This developer and the homeowners that are selling these properties are leaving the rest of the residents on this street to deal with the mess. The only parties in favor of this site-specific allowance are those who are directly profiting, and all others are opposed. We are not in support of making these specific changes that will negatively impact those remaining in the neighborhood for the sole benefit of out-of-town investment that will hurt local business. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm James Gamble, 321 Homestead Road. I've been employed with Empower Electric for 10 years. I just want to say the road is a problem. The road is not wide enough for all the additional units. Even now, if a tractor trailer turns down the road, he can't turn around. The cul-de-sac, I don't believe, is enough. I've been trapped at work, after work, and I wasn't able to pick up my son several occasions. And I just want to make sure there's strong considerations with widening the road and making sure the infrastructure is enough to build something like this on this road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Saying none? Rebuttal? Come on up.
Hello again. I appreciate the opposition here's concerns and questions about the widening. So we alone can't resolve the entire issue. Part of the conditions that were spoke about were water and sewer. So we are making water and sewer improvements on Homestead Drive, making an extension of an 8-inch water line. There is an existing 8-inch which would serve more than available water. It's what's local to most streets in Nashville is an 8-inch water line, and it is on the north side of Homestead. We are extending that further into the cul-de-sac per our approved Metro Water Sewer plans. So we are taking care of that for the neighbor. As far as being out-of-towners, we are a local developer, or I represent a local developer, so we are not out-of-towners. We live and work in Nashville, so we're present in this area. Now, we don't live on the street, but we are here. We do have support from adjacent neighbors that are commercial businesses, several on the south side of Homestead up towards, and those emails should be in the meeting notes from the previous planning commission. I didn't resend them, didn't think I would need to. But we do have the commercial property that's on the south side that is at the corner of Dickerson and Homestead, and then the other additional warehouse on the south side of Homestead as well. So we do have letters of support. We have letters of support from all of our adjacent neighbors on the south side. Then Ms. Toombs has spoken to most of them, I think, as well. We have community support from our neighbors to the south, just thanking us for eliminating the connection from Larkspur to Homestead. But as far as tractor trailer traffic, it is my understanding that all operations of commercial business should happen within the property. So if there is a problem with operations of an existing business, those should have been had on their own property. As far as parked cars on the street, now there is some debate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Council Lady, you want to finish this, or have you said everything you wanted to say, or come on up if you want to, if you would like.
I just want to speak briefly on the community support piece. I don't move forward with projects unless I feel like I have community support. Again, I've had a couple of community meetings about development of Homestead. There was actually a third meeting some time ago to talk generally about development on Homestead because there was interest from property owners in what future development looked like. And so I have received emails in support. At the last community meeting, there were several property owners there who were in support, who are not the actual recipients of financial benefit of these two projects. So there is community support there, and I understand the concerns from the business owner about his business, and I'm willing, as I always am, to have additional conversations. I've explained that even once we're past planning commission, there's still 3 readings at council, so there's still opportunity to continue to have discussions. But I just wanted to let you know I don't move forward with projects or offer support if I don't feel like there's a sufficient community support for a project.
Thank you, Council Lady. Thank you for the clarification. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Before we get in the discussion, just a clarification, the owners that have spoken against it, they don't, their business is not on this particular lot. It's down the street, right?
Correct. I think across, yeah.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that.
Not on this property, right.
Okay. All right. Councilor Gamble, you want to start us off, and then we'll go to discussion.
Thank you, Chair. I know this area really well. It is less than a mile from District 3, so I go by here almost every day. And as we consider our housing needs in the city, this is the exact place that we would want to have multifamily developments that are close to the corridor. And so I think I agree that this is a good location for this type of development. I do have a concern, or question, I should say, about the street. It was mentioned that the street may be 19 feet wide or 20 feet wide. If we could get a clarification on that. And is the street going to be a public or private road? I couldn't tell from the recommendation if this would be a public or private road. So if we could get a clarification on that.
So the existing Homestead Road is a public street with a 50-foot right-of-way, but narrow in places pavement. NDOT has a condition that requires the applicant to continue to work with them to widen that pavement where they can. Of course, there's limited frontages for this one and then the next one that you'll hear also. And so they will definitely be widening in front of their own properties, and then NDOT is in discussion for them to actually widen it further along Homestead where the right-of-way exists. The internal drives for this development are private.
But they would meet the required width of standards that are set by planning, so that they are able to have trash pickup and other things with no
Yes, I mean,
issues.
and they serve as fire access points. They meet all of those standards for fire access, which typically requires a little bit wider, actually.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Buzz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know about the traffic study. This road intersects with Dickerson Pike?
It does.
All right. And at the end of it, is there a traffic light or is there a proposal for a traffic signal or anything like that?
There is not, and there's not a desire to have one. From NDOT's perspective, it's too close to the interstate interchange. So that's one of the reasons we want to kind of limit development now that that Larkspur connection's been removed.
Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Commissioner Henley, or wait, Commissioner Henley, let's do Commissioner Leslie and then we'll get you. Commissioner Leslie. Oh, you're finished.
Yes, I'm done.
All right, Commissioner Marshall.
Okay, just clarification. So NDOT has given you all the recommendations that they would recommend to be done as part of this, correct? And then also, did you receive any other businesses that didn't want to see the project move forward? Because I'm likewise very familiar with that area, and I think it's a great spot.
There was one other, I think a property owner that voiced objection. But that went to the SharePoint that you all received, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Henley?
Yeah, well, first, I'd like to thank the council member for stewardship of this, and I remember this coming before us before, and it seems as though the attempts by the owner and developer to be responsive to a lot of the public comment and concerns that we had are evident in this, and providing more material SP for our review, I think, is really helpful. This is I guess another opportunity for me to yet again say this, but avid supporter of affordable housing, and it is very frustrating that we keep having really good projects, particularly ones like this. I'm biased because these are the types of scales of projects that my firm likes to do, but to continue to have these debates about these projects being good or not good when we know we need the housing and we have public infrastructure issues, particularly just road widths, is very frustrating. I've went through the process before of amending a community plan and having an SP, and the area around it benefited. There was more housing, and I think this is yet again another example of an opportunity for us as a city to figure out how to improve a road. It seems like we've already got enough utility infrastructure, or we'll have at least to support this. So I definitely understand the concerns of a business that's been there for over a decade, that's been able to operate in a certain way. And it seems like if we had a sufficient road here, we'd have 63 new homes and happy small businesses in our community. And I think that's just something we should galvanize by making this a focal point. And I'm happy to support the council member any way I can to elevate this as a priority when it's just a nice road widening project that will get us there. So I just wanted to give that perspective and those comments. But again, I think I'm in support of it because of the amount of movement that happened from when it came before us before till now. But I do think there's some great responsibility, but also opportunity for us as a city to improve this area.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Vice Chair.
I want to second what Commissioner Henley just said. This is a great example of where dealing with the infrastructure a little bit more holistically will help us greatly. And I just wanted to confirm, I think I read this, but no short-term rentals, right?
So this one actually, and you've got a memo correcting that condition on your, that Dustin mentioned. So this one was under review by a different staff member and has been handed over to Dustin for review. And all of the versions of the plan that we had reviewed had included short-term rentals. And so then we had the condition, because our for any new housing projects, staff sort of starts at the point of no short-term rentals, but there had been conversations previously that with the former staff member that Dustin and I didn't know about. And so once we figured that out, we didn't want to sort of go back. And I will say the policy is a mixed-use policy. It's a community center policy. And so it's not a residential policy where we would normally say absolutely not, non-owner occupied or not permitted. This is a policy that would support it and would currently allow hotels. And so we felt more comfortable updating the condition in that way.
If
So
if the
this one
commissioner
does-
wanted to raise that as an issue, the councilwoman is here, and I think you could express that as a concern.
I mean, yeah, that is definitely a concern. I second Commissioner Henley's points on the need for more housing, but not for a big cluster of short-term rental properties. And I think from the perspective of being good neighbors with a business, having a lot of Ubers coming in and out would be problematic. So I would be open to some discussion on this one about limiting the or prohibiting short-term rentals. 'Cause that was definitely a selling point for me of this one.
Any other discussion?
I'm not an abolitionist when it comes to short-term rentals at all. Just want to be careful with them. That was part of the proposal she brought. She specifically brought this proposal and indicated it had some short-term rentals. And while not needing to be everywhere, it seems like if you're going to have them, this is not a bad place in terms of everything we see and everything we've heard. I hadn't really thought about them being inherently evil anywhere in the county, and I guess maybe since there's been a specific question for the council member, maybe we should have her talk about that a little bit more.
Counselor, you want to talk about short-term rental on the property, kind of how it came about?
So I try to be practical when I'm working with developers on projects. I understand that there are expenses involved. And in talking with developers, because there are two different projects, so there's 316 and then there's 330 and 332, two different SPs. And so in talking about infrastructure and getting additional infrastructure beyond what, a developer would normally do for a project, and just trying to figure out, what works for all parties involved, there was an agreement to allow the short-term rentals for 316, but not for 330 and 332. So that was the compromise.
That's very helpful, Counselor. Thank you. Very helpful. Any other discussion? We do need a motion, maybe, if there's no other discussion. Council Lady?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
That's a proper motion. Is there a second? There's a second.
One point of order, we want to make sure it includes the memo with the updated conditions, that motion.
Yes, thank you. And that includes the memo listed as item 4, revised condition. Thank you. Very good clarification. Any other, so that's a proper motion. There's a second. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it's adopted. Item 4 is adopted with the condition. We are now on to item number 5.
Dustin Shane, staff planner again. This is the complementary SP on the same road, 330 and 332 Homestead. Basically an identical kind of presentation I'm going to give you here. Multifamily SP. We do recommend approval with conditions. Zoning, CS around there, RS10 to the south. T4 Urban Community Center, and then Dickerson North Small Area Plan. This is the site layout, very similar. Private drives, townhomes, fronting on open space and right-of-way, buffers in the south. This is for 33 units, about 15 units an acre. Same bulk standards, sidewalks, parking requirements met. Same policies apply, except I want to point out this is in the medium intensity area of the Dickerson North Small Area Plan, which is meant to transition down to those single family areas to the south. And then again, the infrastructure limits on the site, that Larkspur connection being removed, development potential will be limited as we go forward. But here, as we've looked at the traffic, we find that there's still potential on the road. And then the memo you have for this one just clarifies that there will be the condition that the sidewalk be built between these two developments. So we recommend approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And so commissioners will open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? Come on up. Well, the council already spoke on both items, so we'll still have the council speak at the end if we need. Go ahead. You have 10 minutes and you can save 2 of the 10 minutes for.
Thank you again for letting me be here and appreciate that previous approval. Similar and the same goes for this one. The same conditions exist for road widening in conjunction with the development. Again, we're providing cross-parcel access for future developments if our neighbors choose to develop. Again, have the large setbacks from our neighbors to the south to protect that single family. Trying to respect and front on the more open green space and the envisionment that if it were to build out to our west, we would have a formalized courtyard would be the hope. So it was an intentional layout instead of just having stacked rows of townhomes. So this would again have adequate water, adequate sewer with an adjacent sewer easement just to our east. The stormwater, of course, is going to be handled on site. We've already submitted for grading permit on this one as well. So more of the same comments I think you're going to hear is just condition of the homestead and its existing condition. And our concentration is, again, we're going to be widening that street to a minimum of 20 feet, which is a typical alley section in Nashville, and what NDOT requested us at least to review. There's no more specific. This is a similar development, no short-term rental on this one, and it does provide adequate parking with garages and additional surface spaces. And it was a little bit overparked, I think, per code, but it does allow for the adequate street parking or surface parking. So I don't know if there's any specific questions, but I'll just reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Thank you, and we will reserve 2 minutes for your rebuttal. Anyone wishing to speak in support? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Welcome. Again.
I'll try not to sort of rehash what was said before, but I think the last comment was pretty indicative. He said that they're going to try to widen Homestead Road to 20 feet, which is about the average length of an alley, width of an alley. And again, it's really insufficient for this road. I think at a minimum, it should be, I would say 30 foot of pavement under the local street standards. Usually got 30 foot of pavement, 2.5 feet curb and gutter, and then 4 foot sidewalks, 4 foot grass strips. And so when you've got something that's a glorified alley, it's just very hard to get tractor trailers, commercial vehicles, as well as additional traffic there on that street. I would hope that they would build the sidewalks all the way to Dickerson. Otherwise, their short-term rental guests will, I guess, be walking in the ditch. But the main thing that I want to say here that I didn't get a chance to say before is that their traffic study indicates that probably about 160 units can be built on this street before a traffic signal there at Dickerson and Homestead would be warranted. So you've got 56 of those units coming in now, which means that roughly another 100 units can be added before you've got the need for a traffic signal. And to avoid people trying to turn left from Homestead, crossing 4 lanes of travel there on Dickerson. And so if you're roughly going to have about 100 units left before a traffic signal could be warranted, and I think all told, either vacant or underutilized land on Homestead Road is probably 6 or 7 acres. So if you're talking 6 or 7 acres, easily you can hit that 100 unit threshold pretty quickly. And so I think what the staff report said is that future approvals will be limited. And so my client is kind of stuck in a difficult position where I think a traffic signal is warranted, but to stay below that threshold, they're going to limit development, which means that this developer gets to come through with their development and then his future rights may be somewhat adversely impacted. So just appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, rebuttal?
I can hear the opponent's concerns, and while we understand them, it was a request for us to provide that traffic study, and that was the data that was provided. Now, we were the ones to provide it, but it was a third-party consultant working with NDOT to do that signal warrant analysis, and it just gives the basic facts of what Homestead can handle. And to his point, future developments, being good neighbors, they would be doing their part to improve their community as well. So they would be looking at the same improvements that we're finding challenge with existing driveways and parking within the right-of-way as it exists today. So encroaching into that right-of-way, narrowing the right-of-way, limiting that construction. So our hope is that we can not disturb their development and widen on the south side when we're building sidewalks to help widen that section, at a minimum from 316 to 330, and then working continuously. And I had conversations with NDOT today on what can and can't be done as far as participation with NDOT and or just providing a pedestrian sidewalk without having the full streetscape provided. Now, when I said that the 20-foot minimum, that is just what it is. It is the minimum that NDOT requires, and all of Homestead is not 18 to 19 feet. There are sections that widen out as you get closer to Dickerson Pike, but as it gets narrowed as you get farther into the development, which is where we live and where we're saying we're going to widen. So I think we, as stewards of our neighborhood, we're trying to help the condition and not hurt the condition. So I just ask that you vote on that merit alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor, do you have anything to add, or I think we're good? Okay, we've already discussed everything. If we have questions, obviously we'll let you know. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Marshall, you want to start us off? How about that?
All right, thank you. So just for clarification, again, this particular one has no short-term rentals as part of it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so it's basically the same as we discussed earlier. You all work directly with TDOT as far as the road is concerned and making sure that it meets the requirements and policies and everything.
Yeah, NDOT did look at the traffic warrant analysis that they did and has put conditions found in the staff report about potential widenings, work to be done at the end of the cul-de-sac that the applicant will be required to do.
So the road wouldn't be catering to a commercial company where they're bringing in big trucks and things like that. This is a residential road.
The property all along the road is already zoned commercial,
Right.
And could be developed by right with uses that would generate far more traffic than these proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Commissioner Henley.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the comment, I think actually part of our staff report about future development potentially being limited. And I think that's a very, very strong point made by the opposition. I would just say, I would assume, and sometimes it's dangerous, that planning our department, we collectively are taking this view of the street, and as others would come to look at development, advise them, if not very firmly direct them to kind of take some of these same approaches as far as widening, so that we, over time, are delivering a road that is functional for the uses that are already by right permitted.
That's right, and that's sort of what the overall capacity study was about whenever we were looking at updating the community the community plan to remove the street connection to Larkspur. So we were looking at sort of a capacity analysis to what can this road handle? And so, yes, that's right. We would be having those conversations. And if any redevelopment proposals were coming in, we would be looking at the capacity analysis to make sure that we're not over sort of what's been determined to be the appropriate capacity now. That would be for rezonings. If say that this project and the project that you all just recommended for approval, if they make it through the process and they're built, they're chipping away at the capacity. If something else redevelops under existing zoning, it's chipping away at that capacity. And so all of that would go into those decisions.
Yeah, I think my point being, some developments by right don't have to necessarily come before this body. And so I would hope that there's a formalized way to inform all properties on this section of road that the intent and the recommendation is that you kind of match or marry to the endeavor of having the road widened from Dickerson all the way to its terminus and turnaround.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. It's a very good point. Any other discussion? Commissioner Leslie.
So will the sidewalk come all the way down to Dickerson Pike or, and then the second question I have, will there be crosswalks or anything like that? Will part of your traffic study, I'm familiar with that area and it's very congested.
So each development would build the sidewalks along their frontage.
Okay.
And then there's a gap between the two that would be completed with sidewalks. So the developer has agreed to build that sidewalk connecting the two developments. Beyond that, there's going to be conversations with NDOT, but we also, whenever we're sort of looking at off-site improvements, we have to look at what's being proposed and the nexus between what's being proposed and what we're asking someone to do sort of off-site in regards to if it's proportionate to what the impact of the development is. So we'll consider those, we'll continue those conversations for anything that's off-site, but given the scale of these projects, it does make it more limiting as to how much infrastructure we can ask for a particular developer to provide.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Vice Chair, motion?
Just quickly, I mean, I do think, I guess I didn't quite realize how much the road narrowed by the time you got to the end, and that's where the commercial is most heavily located. So I think I'm sort of just following up on Commissioner Henley's point. I mean, it definitely is a concern to see the development playing out. But I still think it makes sense in the fact that we could rezone, or that we could have much higher intensity uses in that area by right at this point. You know, I think the residential makes sense. Is there any chance that those 3 commercial properties at the end could do something to kind of facilitate traffic flow around them? I mean, there's also an opportunity to do something there at the end.
If those were to redevelop, then there were probably conversations, but that's likely outside of the scope of the conversations that happen with these developments.
Right, okay. Well, I will make, unless there's other comments, I'm happy to make a motion.
Yeah, any other discussion? Let's ask. Any other discussion? All right, Vice Chair, why don't you make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
That's a proper motion. Is there a second?
Sure, with that, those conditions added.
Oh,
With the conditions.
yes, so that would be the memo, Commissioners, that says, under the subject line, item 5, revised conditions. So thank you for always keeping us straight. The team always keeps us straight. So that's a proper motion. There's a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And that is adopted. And so, Commissioners, we've been here approximately an hour and 52 minutes. We only have 2 cases left, but I always want to make sure y'all are okay, because a lot of times after 2 hours, take a restroom break. But and I always ask Stuart, you know, if he needs a restroom break. Stuart's good. All right, we're going to continue. Item 17. Donald, are you ready for us? We're ready for you. All right, go ahead, Donald.
Excellent. I'm Donald Anthony with the Planning Department. This is item 17 on your agenda. This is a request to amend a portion of the Allen Estates residential planned unit development. The site consists of 3.54 acres located at the southwestern corner of Tyler Drive and Andrew Jackson Parkway. Staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. The base zoning for the subject property is R10, and again, it is in a PUD overlay. The site is located in the Donaldson, Hermitage, Old Hickory community planning area, and the applicable policy for the site is Suburban Neighborhood Evolving, or T3NE. The T3&E policy is intended to create and enhance suburban residential neighborhoods with more housing choices, improved connectivity, and moderate density development patterns with moderate setbacks and spacing between buildings. On the screen, you'll see the currently approved Allen Estates PUD. The entire PUD includes 2 parcels on 5.56 acres. The PUD permits a total of 47 residential units, 40 of those being multifamily units, 6 being duplex units, and 1 being a single-family unit. The proposed PUD does not include the 1 single-family unit, which is highlighted in orange on the screen, and is situated on a 2.02 acre property on the southern part of the PUD. The multifamily units in the approved PUD would have been divided between a mix of flats and townhouses, and you'll see that the access to the site was limited to a single driveway connecting to Eva Drive, a local street on the west side of the PUD. The proposed PUD amendment is now shown on the screen. This amendment would change the site layout and the access point. There would be no changes to the approved density, and the proposed changes would only apply to the northern portion of the PUD. The single-family lot on the south would be unaffected. So if not for the shift in the driveway that we'll talk about in a moment, this would be an administrative approval rather than having to come back through the Planning Commission. As shown on the screen, the flats have been removed. The multifamily portion of the development would consist entirely of townhouses. These would line Tyler Drive and Andrew Jackson Parkway on the north and east. And internally, 3 townhouse buildings would be grouped around a common open space. The 6 duplex units on the west side of the PUD would remain with this amendment. The most significant change is the shift in the location of the access point. Rather than having access from Eva Drive, the access would now be from Tyler Drive, which is a collector on the north side of the site. Staff evaluated the proposed amendment in light of the T3&E policy and found that the proposed changes are consistent with the policy. Therefore, staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions, and we can answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We will open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? Welcome. Please state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes, and you can save 2 of the 10 for rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your service. My name is Adam Sager. I'm with Dale & Associates. We're a civil engineering firm here in town, and we represent the owner. And when we got this project, we were really kind of moving into the construction drawings because it is already approved, like staff mentioned. As we got into it, this PUD was approved back in 96, I think again in 97, and on those old PUDs, we're trying to recreate and dig back up the old notes and drawings and find out what's there. The drawing that was on the screen a minute ago was actually from a construction drawing set, and it shows the driveway coming out onto Eva Drive, which on your screen will be to the left or to the west. Eva Drive is a minor little street. Tyler Drive is the collector. And so as we started looking at this with staff, the best we could determine is that because the only plan that we have record of from back then has it onto Eva, let's go ahead, go through the PUD amendment and get it back, excuse me, and show it on Tyler if that's what we're gonna request. There are 3 duplexes over on the left side that are out there today. People are living in those homes, and the driveway as proposed on the old plan, the drive would go right through one of the duplexes, so the duplex would have to be removed. We don't want to do that. So we naturally put it up on Tyler, which is the main east-west connection. Now, there is a school across the street. We are aware traffic is up there. We believe it makes more sense to even put the drive up on Tyler because it's a direct access to the connector. Rather than take it to the minor, to the larger street, let's access more directly to the collector street. Andrew Jackson Parkway is on the right side. I can't predict where every turning movement's gonna go, but if I were to live here, there's a high likelihood I'm gonna go out to Andrew Jackson Parkway. I'm gonna be turning right onto Andrew Jackson Parkway. If my drive was on Eva, I'd have even a longer way to go. Another thing that this does is it kind of cleans up the plan. By bringing back a PUD amendment, we then kind of open it back up. We clean up the layout. There are conditions now added. I do think it's worth noting that the previous layout did not show sidewalks along Andrew Jackson, along Tyler, or along Eva. The new plan that we're presenting and proposing here, the owner is saying, okay, we'll go ahead and commit to showing those sidewalks. There's cross accesses across Tyler. ADA ramps have been requested. NDOT has requested an additional traffic study, which we've agreed to do. So there are, I think I counted an additional 9 conditions that are going into this amended plan that weren't there before. But I do want to reiterate, the only reason why we are changing this is not because of a change in property, not because of a change in density. It is only to shift the drive up to Tyler so we aren't having to tear down an existing home. I think Mr. Henry had some words to speak as well. I'm sure we'll reserve our 2 minutes for rebuttal. Thank you all for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Sean Henry, 500 11th Avenue North. Glad to be in front of you again for one more item. You heard Councilman Jordan Huffman speak in favor of this at the beginning of the meeting. He had a public meeting out at the Hermitage Police Precinct, and we attended that, and there were some folks who attended that as well. Some folks were there thinking it was about something else. They realized they were not there for the right thing. There was another gentleman that attended and was concerned actually about some off-site stormwater drainage that really didn't apply to this property at all. But nonetheless, Councilman Huffman took those notes and apparently reported that to NDOT to deal with that stormwater issue, and we appreciate him doing that. As you just heard, the original driveway, which appears on page 83 of the staff report, it's very difficult to see because it's a very old plan from the 1990s, comes straight across into Mona Drive. If Mr. Anthony, I don't know if you can scan back to one of the prior larger images to show the Mona Drive and the homes on Mona Drive that lead over to Terry Lane. If you could pan back out. No matter how you come out of this current site, you've got to get on Tyler Drive sooner or later. All of this traffic on this property dumps onto Tyler Drive as presently approved in the PUD and as revised per this amendment. What we're suggesting is it would be better to have this traffic get onto Tyler Drive and not use the local street of Eva or not use the local street of Mona or not use the local street of Terry Lane to get over to Tyler Drive. Our proposal is to let this traffic have a direct access with this relocated driveway directly onto Tyler Drive. And so if you have a choice, and this commission does and the council does, it would seem better to have that traffic have its direct access onto a collector street because this is a multifamily development as opposed to allowing this multifamily development to be built out and use the current approved driveway through the local street network that I just described. So we think that has a lot of merit, and we'd like to reserve our 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. We'll
Thank
reserve
you.
2 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone in the room wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Welcome. Come on up. And you have 2 minutes. The timer is right there, and please state your name and address for the record.
Gary Baldwin, 5315 Weber Road. I represent the family that lives there. I'm the son-in-law. I did speak to them about the drainage just off of Eva, and but I also spoke to them about the traffic pattern. Across the street is 2 homes on Tyler, and there's a school, middle school, elementary school, and traffic is backed up on the opposite side of the street when school's out, and getting to the school and coming the other direction, they're backed up on that side of the street. We have school buses going in and out, and if you're going to try to pull a driveway out on Tyler Lane, it's going to be very hazardous they block off the side of the road, they put cones out, and so if you're traveling either way, you have marginal driveway. And then at Tyler and Andrew Jackson, it's a major hazard for turning left all day long. There is a turn lane, a very narrow turn lane. If you coming in down Andrew Jackson, you want to turn left onto Tyler. So the traffic pattern is terrible. And I just say that the driveway pulling out onto Tyler is problematic. There's no, being very, very hazardous. So that's all I can speak of on that.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
How you doing? Hi, I'm Don Hoover. Retired in 2015. I came down to Weber because there's a mini farm there. It's a great place. My wife is a green thumb farmer, sort of. And we think that it's going to change the complexion of the whole neighborhood when you bring all this new project in. And the traffic on Weber is already rough. It's a 2-lane road. It's very difficult. Sometimes it's going to be worse with more people coming in. And they cut off, of course, when they come around Tyler and Andrew Jackson, they make a sharp turn on Weber and go into shops up there. This is my daughter, by the way. And so we're just opposed to the project generally because, I believe in the American dream, and I came down here from Kentucky to live part of it right here in Nashville. And now I think it's going to destroy the value of the land. It's going to be a horrible place to live on Weber now if this goes through. I don't know if I can be more blunt than that, but I almost had a cow when I heard about this, and I'm working on getting a real cow where I am on my mini farm, but we'll let that be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lee Purnell, and I live on Andrew Jackson. And I'm opposed because I think it's just too many units in one place, and it joins to already existing duplexes. There's probably about 100 duplexes already adjacent to it. And then you're going to put in another 40. And then it's on down past me on Andrew Jackson. There's a lot of other townhomes. And then next door to me on Andrew Jackson, they're going to put in sometime about 24 townhomes. So it's like we're just overrun with townhomes. And so that's why I oppose it. Plus, there are 2 schools on Tyler. And so there's a school zone probably from 7:30 to 9:15 in the morning. And then from 2:30 to about 4:15 in the afternoons, because there's a middle school and an elementary school on Tyler. So there's always, during those times, a lot of traffic, a lot of parents picking up their kids. So there's a lot of traffic, and it's always backed up during that time. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Council, my name is Eric Snook. I live on Harwell Court, just off of Tyler, kind of in my backyard is where this will be going. Kind of like everyone else said, it's the traffic. Anytime between 3 and 4 when school pick up, drop off, I try to avoid taking a right down Tyler, just because it gets backed up almost all the way to both sides of Tyler. And that's not just for 10, 15 minutes, it can be up to an hour. At first, I thought this was including the parcel just below where the vacant house has been. Honestly, I feel like it's one of the only eyesores besides the local motel or the local homeless camp. But I've definitely seen people that wouldn't live on that street kind of linger around that vacant home, which is just below this development. But at the end of the day, adding 40 units right off of Tyler, it just doesn't make sense. I work in the construction industry. I make my money off of townhomes just like this, but in an area right across the school with already congested traffic, it doesn't really make sense to me, but that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Michael Brooks. I live at 5323 Weber Road, and my concern is the 3 roads right there all come together. You're adding a lot of concrete there. The house that I live at is actually kind of downhill from that. All that water is going to naturally run down into my property, my neighbor's property, and there's nothing there to be sufficient to get rid of it except for my yard. And I haven't seen anything addressing that. Is there anything that addresses any kind of drainage or anything?
We'll address that when we have the discussion, but yes, there are specific water standards, so keep going.
Okay, that's my biggest concern right there, because, I mean, my kids, that's where they play. That's where everybody walks through is down Weber Road, and all that drainage is going to go right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi there. My name's Gary Ann Ford, and I live on Weber Road. And I am concerned about this. I'd not ever heard that there was any other plans to build this many townhomes on this small piece of property. What everyone else has said, I totally concur with. Weber is notorious lately for speeding and bad traffic. It's a cut-through road to get to Chick-fil-A, which is the most popular restaurant in Hermitage, and it is a problem. And we have a lot of people lately wanting to race down our street, and I live pretty far off the road, but I can hear it in my bathroom, the loud cars, the racing. This is not going to help whatsoever. I'm also a little concerned about whether these are going to be rental units. Are they going to be sold as condominiums? Are they going to be sold townhomes? That's very, very important to us. There is a crime element in Hermitage, and especially along Terry Avenue there and Tyler Avenue. I read it daily. I get the local crime reports, and it's very disheartening. So adding this many townhomes to that very small area where there's so many other different rental areas does concern me. Do you have the answers as to what these are going to be? Are they going to be short-term, long-term rentals, or are they going to be actually sold condominiums or townhomes?
Ma'am, we can discuss if we can answer that or not. We'll get our legal staffer to talk about that when we do the discussion, okay?
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
That was my main concern. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Anybody else? No, sir. Unfortunately, there's no repeats at the Planning Commission, so no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since I haven't spoken, can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Come on up, state your name and address.
My name is Donna Brooks. My address is 532 Weber Road. I'm sorry, I get really nervous in front of crowds, so please excuse me. I do have concerns for this development, mainly because I used to actually teach at Toll Grove Elementary. We've had students get hit in that area just from the traffic concerns already. Adding this development would just be another level of concern. Also, the stormwater drainage is a huge issue. We are getting sinkholes in our yard from it currently, and if you add a blacktop, you know rainwater runoff is a big thing. And the crime element as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and you did great. All right, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, rebuttal, 2 minutes.
Thank you all. And we hear the neighbors' concerns and comments, and we did hold a community meeting on January 4th with a council member. And I just want to reiterate, we're not adding any units. The units are already entitled. We're not adding one more unit. And so, like I mentioned at the outset, the first step that we took on this was to move forward to construction plans, and then we found out about the driveway. So the only reason for the amendment is to switch the driveway. Traffic is an issue. There's a school across the street. As council member mentioned during his time earlier, he has, I think he said he's been approved for traffic calming on Tyler. He is working with NDOT actively to help traffic calming out there. The stormwater, yes, there will be stormwater treatment. We have to on every project. The plan before you has some conceptual areas on the lower parts of the site where we will be implementing stormwater as we would with any project. So stormwater will be handled under the stormwater management policies. And I think there was a question about rental townhomes. The intent is to do market rate units on these. And so I think that addresses a lot of it. But yeah, again, we're not adding any units. The units are already there. We're simply trying to switch the driveway because we feel it just seems more logical to get it out onto the collector road. It's a shorter way to Andrew Jackson instead of cutting through the streets that it ends back up on Tyler anyway. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, and the council member spoke earlier, so seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Henley, you want to, how about you start us off today?
Yep, happy to do that. Thank you, Chair. Some of the comments that I had intended to make, I think, were addressed in the rebuttal, and I think, again, identifying that the reason that this item is before us is, well, potentially, as I view it, is to avoid demolition of a duplex in order to construct a road as designed in the current PUD, but also that a lot of that traffic would, again, I think the point was made, would end up on Tyler as well. Kind of shows me that, with the limited accessibility to the area, I actually think this is an improvement to was previously there as the PUD. And then I think also the council members' comments earlier in the meeting, understanding that Tyler Drive is a challenge for his community, even without this development. I think his commitment to that, and it sounds like not only his commitment to it, but the near-term activity that's supposed to happen with the traffic calming gives me a bit more confidence with hopefully how things will be done there. But I know having successive schools next to each other is it's going to be a challenge for any road, regardless of the size.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? I know there was a question about stormwater. Lisa, can you tell us some more details on the stormwater requirements?
Sure. Excuse me. So the Metro Stormwater Department has adopted stormwater regulations. There will be detailed construction plans where they review the generated stormwater. The requirement is that the development can't result in an increase in flow from what is currently running off of the property, so they will have to treat any stormwater on site. And those are reviewed by our professional engineers at the time of construction plans, if this were to be approved.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Dunn.
I just have a question for clarification. On the ingress and egress on Tyler Drive, will there be a traffic light?
No, there is not one now. NDOT has a requirement for a limited multimodal transportation analysis to occur for this at a later stage, but that will be generally focused mostly on pedestrian activity. The signalization, there have to be warrants, and I don't know that a warrant study has been done there, but it's unlikely that this would generate enough traffic to actually warrant a traffic signal.
Okay, and then one other point of clarification. Is there an existing traffic or school zone flashing signal in that area, or?
I do not know the answer to that. We can try to find that out quickly. I don't have that information.
The audience is saying yes, there is. Thank you for helping us out. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Vice Chair, you want to? Commissioner Clifton.
Discussion. Obviously, that I think I understand what's going on. I mean, it's when we say that it's already there, it's really already approved, is what's being said, and the neighbors are thinking it's going to be more actual units. Is that right? Help me out here.
So all land is entitled to a certain zoning,
Right.
and that zoning confers use, number of units, things like that. So thank you for asking that clarification. In this case, there was a PUD planned unit development that has been approved already. And so they want to change the configuration to address a driveway issue, but there are no more units. The density is not more than what's already approved. But that's a good clarification for the neighbor. So you're not being asked to rezone the land for more density than what's already allowed there today.
Although it could make it easier to build it out for whatever reason. But it doesn't change what's allowed already as a matter of.
It doesn't, and there's a bit of an odd requirement for planned unit developments regarding access. If this plan was to come in with this exact layout of townhome units, with the driveway shown exactly where it had been shown on the approved planned unit development plan, it could be an administrative approval. The zoning code says that if you are taking access for a PUD from a road that wasn't originally approved for access, then it has to be an amendment. And so that's why this is an amendment. So the original approval had the driveway on Eva, not Tyler. And so shifting the driveway is the factor that is requiring this. If they came in with this plan with these townhomes and the driveway was shown exactly where it was, it would just be approved at the staff level. But the shift in the driveway is requiring it to come before you.
Of course, it's not a planning thing exactly, but no one's making light of the problem they have there. It sounds pretty terrible. It sounds pretty dangerous. We're not making it worse, it sounds like, with this proposal, except it may make it more likely that it would be built quicker, but they have the right to do it. And there are other mechanisms with neighbors organizing to really focus attention on their area, and with the council members' help, that probably could be done, with or without this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion or a motion? We do need a commissioner to make a motion. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it makes sense. I'm looking at it zoomed out. Eva Drive connects only to two other neighborhood streets, which also deposit nowhere but Tyler. So I can see the logic of that. I'm happy to make a motion to approve staff recommendations to approve with all conditions.
That's a proper motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And item 17 is adopted with staff recommendations. So that leaves us to item number 19. And if everybody could quickly exit, Mr. Henry. Thank you. Let's just make a check to see if anybody is here, because this was on the consent, but it got bumped down. I just want to make sure. Is there any opposition to item number 19? Okay. I just want to make sure. We want to be fair to everybody. Thank you for staying so long. All right. Dustin, you're back.
All right, Dustin Shane, staff planner. Item 19 is a rezoning on Brick Church Pike. This is to rezone from R8 to RM15. And our recommendation is to approve and direct staff to prepare a community plan amendment. The zoning, it's 1 and 2 family residential, R8. And the policy, there's a little bit of conservation for some slope, but mostly district civic. So surrounding uses, mostly industrial. There's some multifamily, light manufacturing, some vacant commercial land. It's all zoned IWD around there. But we judge RM15 to be consistent with the goals of the civic policy. The main goal of that policy is to have public serving properties. The secondary goal is to guide conveyance of these properties when it's in the, to the private sector, when it's in the public interest to do so. Metro has already made a decision and conveyed this property to a nonprofit developer. The rezone before you is to achieve the purpose of this conveyance that has been made, and the RM zoning would allow that purpose. We also observed that the trajectory of the area seems to be towards multifamily residential, though it's mostly industrial now. There is that tendency now that's happening. And so that's why we also think the community plan for the area should be updated to reflect this. So our recommendation again is to approve and do direct staff to prepare a community plan amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we open the public hearing, Councilor, do you want to go? You have not spoken on this, and then we'll get you to go at the end as well, so you can let us before we open the public hearing.
Hello again, Commissioners. I was actually surprised that this one got taken off of consent. This is a project for senior housing. As Dustin stated, the council did vote to donate this land to Awake Nashville. Awake Nashville also received about $3 million in Barnes Fund for this project. If I recall correctly, they are also on a tight timeline to maintain their state funding so that they can complete this project. With all the development throughout the city, one of the things that I hear the most from my seniors is that they feel forgotten, that there's no housing, there's no focus on seniors. I have seniors in my district who are wanting to downsize, but there's nowhere for them to downsize to that's affordable. And so this project is long awaited and very welcome in District 2, and I'd ask for you to approve it.
Thank you, Councilor Liddy. Commissioners, we'll open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? You come on up, state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes, and you can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal. There we go. Welcome.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Hello, Commissioners. So glad to be here. I am the co-founder of Awake Nashville, and this is my mother. She is the founder and CEO of Awake Nashville. We are a nonprofit working to mitigate displacement and create affordable housing solutions for seniors on fixed incomes. As mentioned earlier, we are seeking to change the rezoning for the 2 parcels from R8 to RM15 to create a higher density to support affordable, independent senior living villas. Within this community, it will also have an on-site community center to support the residents with supportive services. As a nonprofit working on the ground to support seniors that are facing displacement, we know that there is a dire need for more affordable, independent senior housing. As someone who has also personally experienced my grandmother going through displacement, we know the effects of involuntary displacement, and we know that we have to do something to create more housing for seniors on fixed incomes. So this project is very near and dear to our heart. We certainly hope that you all will support it. We have received support, an outpouring of community support on this project as we get numerous calls daily from seniors looking for housing. So this is something that is very needed for the community, especially in North Nashville.
I just want to add that, this is the recent Community Needs Evaluation Report from Metro Social Services recently focused on the costs and challenges of aging in Nashville. And it highlighted the escalating costs of living in Nashville and the urgency of addressing
affordable housing, especially for seniors on fixed incomes. We know that seniors are the fastest growing population, segment of our population. So if we don't meet this need on the front end, we're going to be meeting this need on the back end, possibly creating homelessness for these seniors that own fixed incomes on Social Security. We know to live in Nashville, a one-bedroom is almost running $1,500 to $1,800 a month. Most seniors on Social Security make less than $1,500 a month, roughly. On the higher end, maybe $1,800. So that already negates the crisis that we face with seniors on fixed incomes. Our organization is trying to mitigate that issue of displacement. And so we ask that you all would vote in favor of this high community need, and also with the support of Councilmember Toombs, we are excited to bring this need to North Nashville. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal. All right, anyone wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up. We've got 2 minutes. And state your name.
Hello, I'm Mike Ripito, and 3564 Brick Church Pike. I've lived in that area for 25 years. We have 41 acres industrial in that site from the quarter all the way to the school. We're not opposed to a good plan, and this has been surplus property for over 20 years, and there's a reason it's been surplus property here. We didn't want to buy it because the topography goes up 50 to 75 feet. There are no there's no bus stops. The traffic, we've done 4 traffic studies. The average traffic there's 58 miles an hour. 70% of the traffic there is commercial and industrial. We're not saying that affordable housing is not a need. We're just saying this is probably the most challenging thing you're going to see. We've done a ton of site, and we estimate it'll be $3 million in site work with an average retaining wall of about 30 feet. The local bus stop close is 0.7 miles away. There are 0 grocery stores, and this area is being more industrial movement than affordable housing. No grocery stores, no bus stops, 0.7, a 15-minute walk to UN Lane. I live in this area. I have 7 industrial warehouses in this area. I'm with you. It's ludicrous to think you're going to spend this kind of money with no services. And it's ludicrous for the traffic. If you do walk down the road, it's just partial sidewalks. I mean, you're talking about a real tough situation.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, rebuttal. 2 minute rebuttal from the applicant. Come on up, and then we'll do the council lady. Thank you.
We do understand that one of the issues he was talking about is the busing, or the ability for them to have access to busing. But we were in a meeting with Councilmember Toombs, and they are planning to have a new area for creating new busing area, a terminal for them to be able to access busing. Also, we are partnering with Access Ride and Senior Ride, that we will be able to, combat the transportation issues. I'm going to allow the developer to talk about the topography of it.
Hi, Brad Kessler from Legacy South.
I mean, it is a very unique and difficult site because of the topography, but I think because of the Barnes Fund giving that $3 million that we're able to achieve, or Awake's able to achieve, a flat, ADA accessible villa-like product. So I think just approving this development will really do a disservice to the Barnes Fund and the land that's there, because it's just gonna sit vacant, and no one's gonna be able to do that without assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Liddy?
I want to speak to the area and the services in the area. So these two parcels are actually either one or two parcels over from an apartment development that's currently under construction. So there's actually more residential coming to that area. There was a special exception that particular property was able to obtain through the zoning administrator. And as the opposition stated, it's about a 15-minute walk. I doubt many seniors will be walking, maybe so. But you get to UN Drive, which is very much a suburban residential area. So this is not a, two lone parcels in the middle of a bunch of warehouses. There's actually residential in close proximity to it. As the council person, I am constantly working on bringing more amenities and stores and shops, and so I'm very hopeful about the Brick Church corridor, because it is a main corridor for the area. So again, I have no concerns about about this being a good place for seniors to live, and again, really looking forward to having this housing.
Thank you, Councilor Liddy. And seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Leslie, do you want to go first, or? I try to spread it out.
That's right. I appreciate it. Well, I think it's an excellent idea. We do need senior housing, and I understand Mr. Ripeto's belief that it's not a good property and so forth like that. But I think that everything considered, I think we just should. I believe in approving the staff recommendation as it is.
Thank you.
Real simple.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else wishing to speak? Commissioner Marshall.
Yeah, just a clarification. What is the community plan amendment? What does that consist of?
Sure. So whenever property has formerly been or formerly owned by Metro, it's put into a policy called Civic that's in recognition of the Metro ownership of the property. There is language in the policy about if property is conveyed to a private owner, which is what happened here, then the policy needs to be updated. And so I have talked with our Assistant Director in Community Plans, John Houghton, and we have been looking at this area. And of note, which the council member brought up, there is a multifamily development. You can actually see sort of the footprints of those starting just to the north of this. There's a multifamily development that's under construction that's 240 units immediately adjacent to this. That's within an area of district industrial policy. Well, clearly, what's being built there is not in line or in keeping with the industrial policy, but they built that under the existing zoning. And so what staff has recommended is that you all approve this zoning and then direct us to look at the policy not only for these properties to bring it into compliance with a mixed-use district or a mixed-use policy that would support housing, but also to look at the properties to the north so that the policy can be reflective of the multifamily development that's happening on that site currently.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Councilor Liddy. And then Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also familiar with this property. It is close to District 3 as well, and I understand the concerns that was expressed regarding access to public transit and grocery stores, but as it's been stated, and even the topography concern, but as it's been stated, I think the fact that this is a Barnes Fund project that is supporting the development that provides those funds to address the challenges with the topography, and the idea that this is a senior community and not having to consider because it's a senior community, a lot of walking and that type of thing. And the fact that they have the community center and supportive services that will be on site and connecting with Access Ride and Senior Ride, I think that kind of addresses the concern about access to mobility while we continue to work on infrastructure. That is a major corridor. Brick Church Pike is a major corridor. It is a suburban transitional community. That is an area as we look at where multimodal infrastructure is needed, it is needed there. And as we get more developments like this, my hope is, in working with the planning department and the council, is to get more investment to provide more infrastructure support in that area. So for those reasons, I support the staff recommendation as well.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I just had a question, sort of a process question. So I fully support this project. I think it's great. I do recognize that it is a challenging place to develop, and if you picked anywhere in the city to put senior housing, this might not be your first property that you would have picked. But I'm wondering, since we have the housing division now within planning, are we talking at all about sort of, trying to make sure this property is zoned correctly before it's given to the nonprofits? Because I think that would make it a lot easier, especially as we're building capacity of newer nonprofits to do this work. And then the other thought I had is just like, do we do kind of a suitability analysis to make sure that, the land that we're granting is appropriate for housing?
Sure, and Hannah Davis from our housing team had been here. She did have to leave, and so she provided me with some information so that I could be sure to report out to you all. So anytime that there is surplus property like there were with these, where Metro decides that they are going to dispose of the property because there's not a sort of Metro need at the time for it, they're awarded through a competitive process that includes multiple reviewers analyzing plans that are proposed for feasibility. So to look at, is it feasible to do what is being proposed? And then also to look at long-term support of the residents. There have been nearly 100 parcels that have gone through this process, and disposal of the back taxes is directed by legislation, and these have been conveyed to the developer. So this one has sort of been through two Metro processes, the conveyance of the property and then also the awarding of Barnes funding. And something that we have talked with Angie Hubbard, our Director of Housing, about is making sure as they are now sort of working through the Barnes funding, they look at the zoning on the front end to make sure that projects that are applying for Barnes funding have the zoning in place to achieve the projects that they're applying for. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I'd just like to say one more thing. And Mr. Ripito, perhaps as part of your co-op, you could put a grocery store in there. Just a thought.
Thank you, Commissioner. Out of order. All right. So is there any other discussion? There may be a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion to support staff's recommendation.
And that's a proper motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it is adopted. So that, Commissioners, that concludes our public hearing items. And in other business, we have historic. Commissioner Smith, our new historic representative.
I'm eagerly anticipating my first meeting next week, and I'll be happy to provide an update after that.
We're going to double your salary. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, for your commitment to that. All right, so now, Parks, Commissioner Henley.
Yes, absolutely. Had the pleasure of having our February meeting on this Tuesday. As all other Metro departments, looking towards the capital spending plan, significant allotments been made to parks, hoping that that remains in there. And there have been some new additions to the Parks Department, and one of which is in the Greenways. And so also have a council liaison.
Hold on one
as
second.
well.
Hey, everybody, we're still meeting. If y'all could just quietly leave, we appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, Commissioner Henley, keep going.
No, I was going to say those are the updates. So just making everyone aware of that, and I know we have Council Member Gamble here who hears many nudges for approving the capital spending plan. So I think this is just yet another good opportunity to do that for parks. But yeah, that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Executive Committee report, just note on your calendar, February 22nd is our next meeting, and then March 14th. So we're, during the holidays, we usually have one a month. Now we're going back to 2 a month. So it's, it'll be fun. And that's all I got, Vice Chair. Is there anything else?
Can I ask one question? Do we have any plans to do any kind of work session at some point on the East Bank? Is that anything out? I just think I read so much about it and I feel a little out of the loop. I'm wondering if that's something on
Yeah, Director, it's probably time to do an update on it.
Sure. We have 2 ideas for work sessions coming up. One of them is around multimodal partnership that we have, a multimodal plan partnership that we're working on with NDOT. Tonight's meeting was sort of a streets and land use discussion, and we're actually doing a study that we think will really inform the issues you were looking at today. We also want to update you on some of the housing work that we know has been in the news and at council, but also work we've been undertaking as well. And I think we can fit an East Bank plan update into either one of those sessions. So happy to do that.
Excellent. And commissioners, if you have ideas for a workshop, so we have workshops that demand more discussion and attention and staff updates. And so if you have ideas, please let the director know. And so we can't speak to each other about that type of thing, but you can definitely, because of the sunshine law. Yeah, so thank you. So if you have ideas, always be willing to do that. All right, Director, anything else? Nope. Legislative update, Council Lady.
Thank you. Just an update on the compact development legislation. It is scheduled for public hearing at the February 20th council meeting. So that will be coming up in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for carrying that. We really do appreciate it. And I do appreciate the council member. She's really great in working with us, and it's extra work, and we appreciate that you come in and supporting us and the council members. So thank you very much. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Everybody, we're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.